National Vendors Union Zimbabwe would like to unreservedly dismiss Minister Chombo and his S12 transgression partner, Vice President Mphoko, for making reckless and immature pronouncements about the vending enterprise in Zimbabwe. The two have finally confirmed our long-held fears that we have a selfish group of men and women running the affairs of this country. Nervous, and indeed the generality of the populace, is yet to come to terms with the disparaging statements made by the two very senior members of our government. We believe that the two have now become purveyors of a very dangerous agenda and are now a national security threat because they would like to disturb the status quo, which is smooth running. We urge the Vice President and the Minister to cool down and apply their minds away from the influences of whiskey and other mind-altering liquids. The National Vendors Union Zimbabwe urges its members throughout the country not to be thrown into panic mode because of an ill-informed and medieval campaign by the two senior government officials to discredit vending without providing alternatives. Without alternatives, they are not talking. The campaign shows lack of both vision and strategy, and hence it should be treated with the contempt that it surely deserves. Being senior members of the government, Navuz treats Minister Chombo and Vice President Mphoko recent comments as a microcosm of the microcosm. Navuz would like to categorically state that all moves and shenanigans aimed at forcefully removing vendors from their current vending sites as being proposed by Dr. Chombo will be resisted vehemently, and indeed will resist. The army and police have no business in the regularization of vending in Zimbabwe. If Dr. Chombo and his partners decides to bring the army, Navuz will not hesitate to approach SADC and the AU for help. And if military is drawn into vending, this will end up being a United Nations issue, an AU issue, and a SADC issue. We appreciate that Dr. Chombo has been recycled so many times as a minister. He has possibly run out of ideas and the way how to run the ministry. But indeed, as Navuz, we are ready to give him free advice and free help on vending issues. Throughout the country, the common problem relates to the identification and designation of inadequate vending sites and that do not match the growing number of vendors in the towns. For instance, Harare has only 12 vending sites, and same can only accommodate a paltry 1,100 vendors, when the city has more than 20,000 vendors. Let's focus on the fundamentals and correct the situation right away. Vice President Mphoko and Minister Chombo, sorry for that pronunciation. Look, I'm struggling to pronounce the name. I'll repeat. Vice President Mphoko and Minister Chombo should be reminded that Zimbabweans, both young and old, are into vending, not by choice, but simply because the country has the highest and embarrassing rate of unemployment. Surely, we do not need to remind these two arrogant twins that with more than 90% unemployment rate, in the formal job market, vending has to become naturally the order of the day. We urge the government to abandon their plans to fight vendors without providing alternatives to millions of graduates. Furthermore, the campaign by Minister Chombo and his partner, Vice President Mphoko, violates Section 51 and 53 of the Constitution of Zimbabwe, which guarantee protection against cruel, inhumane, and degrading treatment, and the right to human dignity. It runs contrary to the national objective of promoting private initiative and self-reliance as set out in Section 13(1)(a) of the Constitution. The campaign is an unreasonable derogation from vendors' constitutional rights to due process, the rule of law, and equal protection of the law. It is mind-boggling to note that Minister Chombo wants to treat vendors as criminals at a time when other developed countries embrace vending as an alternative employment avenue. Street vendors have become an integral component of urban economies around the world. As distributors of affordable goods, services, they provide consumers with convenient and accessible retail options. And they also form a vital part of the social and economic life of a city, town, or even growth points in rural settings. What is the vital form of the Zimbabwean perspective is to ensure that the government assists vendors to get organized, formalized, and eventually legalized in a democratic setup. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Chairperson. I will open this floor for questions.